across the street from the World Trade Center. So maybe she stayed over there somehow. And I don't know how that plays out. I can't even begin to fathom how that plays out. But maybe somehow then she comes out and then whatever scenario happens. This is entirely possible as well under this theory.
I think there are some good statistics to support this theory as well.
There are. They're really disheartening. But here's, I'll lay out a couple of bullet points. Of the 2,606 people that were killed in the World Trade Center collapse, so that's not counting people who were on the planes. There were about 1,600 people were never identified. The remains were never identified. There are over 10,000 tissue and bone samples that have been collected that haven't been identified, as in they haven't been matched to a known victim, somebody that was in the towers at the time. So that's a huge number of people. The other thing is that the city of New York has in their possession, to this day, about 2/3 of the jewelry that was collected from the site. When the fires were raging, it was over 2,000 degrees in the rubble. Most things like metal bands, like gold and silver, those things are going to melt. But diamonds and hard stone like that would not. So those items were found, and some of them have been returned to family who've been able to provide documentation saying, yes, that was my wife's diamond or my husband's diamond or whatever the case may be. That means that it's entirely possible that they may be able to figure out that she was in there based on the diamonds from her rings, her earrings, and she had a necklace. So those things could have survived the temperatures, and the family has provided the documentation to the city of New York, but it's really, really difficult to get confirmation of. But it's still possible. It's still possible that it may be ID'd, but it's very tough.
Well, the thing about it is there's only so many ways to cut a diamond, and so matching up a diamond from one of her pieces of jewelry with the diamonds that they find in the it's kind of inconclusive.
Especially if it was, a necklace set from Kay's, right? How many women have that necklace set from Kay?
No, that's true.
How many? But certainly, like the diamond from her engagement ring should have been more distinctive, but that would require a serial number somehow etched on it, which I don't think they
don't do that. But you get. I know. I bought a diamond. Nobody get angry at me for buying a blood diamond, but I bought a diamond and I got the report on it, and it's got all the specifics listed on it. But here's the thing. If that diamond is then in a giant fire and is being hit by rubble that is tons and tons of stuff, it may not be recognizable to that report.
Also, they probably have, this is super depressing, but probably there are thousands of diamonds. I mean, even if you just say half of the people that were killed in the World Trade Center attacks were women, that still is, over 2,000 people, over 1,000 diamonds that could have been found in the rubble. I think it's on the order of 1,500 pieces of identifiable jewelry collected. And that's insane to ask them to look and examine every single one of them and try and match it to one. That's insane. That's insanity.
Yeah, no,
they should send them to me. I'll look.
Me too.
It actually surprises me that some company that specializes in diamonds, this is a marketing PR bit, and this is going to sound disgusting as soon as I say it, but for great publicity, say, we're going to donate our services and we're going to document the characteristics of every stone that they have, and then we're going to try and match them to it. That's a great bit of PR. That's also a huge service to the families.
It is.
But but companies do that stuff because, well, it's altruistic, but it's also great PR.
Actually, if you just took all the diamonds that you found and sorted them by weight, and just say, okay, well, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a 1 carat diamond? Okay, then here's the 1 carat diamonds. Let's have a look. See.
I'm pretty sure that all of the really obvious ones, the very easy to identify, that third that were identified, they were probably easy to figure out. After that, the rest of them were just
kind of nondescript.
You know, you've got 1 carats and 3/4 carats and all these little stones. At that point, it's a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
It kind of is.
But I think we belabored that enough.
Sorry, yeah.
I'm kind of doubting that she died in the WTC simply because she spent the night with somebody, and she usually would stay with either her cousin or her brother, and she didn't obviously stay with them, so she stayed with somebody else. That person never came forward.
You're right.
You know, and so she innocently spent the night with somebody and forgot and left her bag. So you'd think that person would at some point or another have come forward and said, "Hey, she slept on my couch that night," and that person never did.
And that actually leads us into our next set of theories. Because our next theory is actually split in half.
Ooh.
And that
Violently?
theory... What's that?
Violently?
No.
Damn it.
The next and or murdered.
Or how about sold into slavery?
I didn't even go into that, Joe.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to go into that, to be quite honest with you, sir. Here's the thing. We're going to talk about the Century 21. There was a clerk there named Sonia Mora. She came forward later on, I think it was weeks or a month later, and she said that she saw Sneha shopping there. She knew her. She'd been there many times.
Sneha was a regular, yeah.
She was a regular, so she knew her. If it was a
store close to her house, she probably was.
Yeah, absolutely. And she said that she saw her with another woman shopping. She said she saw her in the shoe section with this woman, which unfortunately didn't have video surveillance because evidently the shoes aren't as important as the jacket section where there was surveillance footage.
It's harder to steal shoes than jackets.
Is it really?
Yeah. You just put a jacket on and walk out like you've been wearing it. Shoes, like you have another pair of shoes, or oftentimes they'll only put one shoe out, or they only have the display size out.
Oh,
and
that's
then
a very
you're
good
sitting
point.
there.
And you got to get somebody to bring them up to fit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
very good point. Yeah. Well, it appears in the footage that's found that that Sneha's by herself.
Okay.
But according to this report, she was with another woman who was described as small, dark-skinned, possibly in her 30s, and possibly Indian. This woman, you know, she might have been she might have known Sneha, but she's never come forward, and the lead ends right there. I mean, it could have been as simple as somebody that she had met before at the store, could have been a casual acquaintance who she bumped into, it could have been somebody she didn't know and just sat there and had a conversation about, aren't these shoes great? And the clerk immediately assumed that they knew each other.
But they looked kind of the same.
And they look kind of the same, yes. So there's all kinds of stuff. But if this is true, this woman never came forward. So we don't know anything about her
except that she's a murderer.
Oh.
Well, yeah, I gotta tell you, I had a lot of random thoughts and ideas as I was going through this story. And one thing that I've never been able to find is a picture of her mother. And we don't know what's in the contents of their 2-hour online conversation. I would imagine this would have come out in the police report, but it's plausible. I mean, I have to wonder, did they say, let's go to the Century 21?
It seems
let's shop together.
It just seems unlikely that her mother, the mother of a 30-something-year-old woman, would be described as looking like she was in her 30s as well.
Good point.
Sorry.
There's all kinds of stereotypes where people say I can't tell one from the other.
Yeah, that's a lie.
And age is kind of hard to tell sometimes. I mean, I know women that I work with who are they're of Asian descent, and you know, the first time I met her, I was like, "Oh, she must be what, in her mid-30s?" No, she's in her mid-50s.
Yeah.
I mean, some people age differently.
That's true, but that would be a startling. I mean, to look like you're the age that your child is super rare.
Unusual.
It's not
I understand.
totally
I agree.
unheard of, but I would say that it's highly unlikely.
No, I will not disagree with that, but I couldn't help but think of that.
The other thing is, though, is it couldn't have been her mother because her mother would have said something.
Absolutely would have said something.
Yeah.
I think in a heartbeat she would have said something.
Again, this is one of those things that just popped into my head and I had to ask.
Yeah, it's hard to say what her relationship, if anything, to this woman was. I mean, it's hard to say if they were just like, two people who just chatted for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it could have been as simple as that. But let's move to the other half of she was kidnapped / murdered. It's entirely possible that she was just the victim of a random murder. She was known to go to a bar, whether it was a bar that was of men and women or women only, and have a drink or several drinks. And it's possible that she sat down next to someone, female or male, who lured away from the bar or who randomly followed her home and attacked her. She could have been unfaithful and went home with somebody who was capable of murder. I mean, these things are entirely possible, but the odd part of that is that her body never showed up. And we've had a lot of conversations recording this podcast about how hard it is to really do a good job of hiding a body.
Yeah.
It's New York. It's full of dark cubby holes where you can stuff things that don't show up for years.
Yeah.
I get that. But most people who kill aren't that good at thinking ahead.
Especially in a time when, I mean, it seems like the city was being pretty scoured for bodies. Not, World Trade Center notwithstanding, there were all those, 9,000 missing people reported. The NYPD is going to go out and be like, all right, well, I guess we'll check every dumpster today. I guess we'll check every...
Within their ability.
Are you talking about checking every dumpster in the city because of 9/11?
I'm not because of the terrorist attacks necessarily, but to help try to determine if the people that were reported were actually in the World Trade Centers,
or if they'd been just murdered and put in the dump.
Or, were drunk asleep on the car.
Last time I saw Joe, he was at Jonesy's bar, and he was talking to this ruffian, and then I didn't see him again, so they're going to go to Jonesy's bar, and they're going to rifle through the dumpster in the back just to check.
And I don't, that just comes from what makes sense to me is that's how you whittle something like that down. That's how you come up with the accurate number, is you prove that the other people who, you kind of pursue all avenues of people being reported missing. So you're doing probably more investigation than typical. You're going to run into bodies more frequently, you would think. Think.
But
also I can see the total opposite. They were stretched thin, and it's totally possible that...
I actually have a feeling that is more accurate. They were stretched.
But you can also... There are ways to get rid of bodies. I mean, there really are.
There are, but not everybody knows how to do that. And I get, if this is true, it's gonna be kind of a crime of opportunity.
Absolutely.
Rather than a crime of planning. Crime of opportunity usually ends up being messy and leaving all kinds of clues.
Yeah. Well, you'd certainly, you would think that somebody, if we wanted to say murder her, would just have murdered her and left the body to be found.
Exactly.
But, supposing he murdered her, stashes the body behind a bush, goes away, and remember, they lived in the Battery. They lived very close to the water, very close to the docks. And so, you go away, you find a bunch of change and weights, come back, and weight the body down and just pitch her off a pier and never be found again. I mean, not for years.
No.
Anyway.
No, I totally get where you're going. It's just, it doesn't seem that likely to me.
No, not really.
I mean, that seems to infer a lot of planning, and especially in the aftermath of the World Trade Center events. Let's say, okay, let's just run down that rabbit hole for a minute. You kill somebody, and you got the body in your apartment, and you're trying to figure out how to get it to the docks. And then a plane flies into a freaking building, and the city is a zoo. How are you going to sneak around with a body rolled up in a rug, to use the old mob joke? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's really not as easy to do, because everybody's looking at everything that's going on, and they're all wigged out.
Actually, that'd be the one time you could actually, throw a body over your shoulder in a fireman's carry and be going down the street saying, "Oh my God, she's hurt really bad. I got to get her to the hospital." You could actually
That's true.
do that.
You could do that.
Yeah.
When you make those kind of observations, it really creeps me out.
It might actually be a sheer coincidence, and maybe she was murdered and then stuffed in a dumpster at the World Trade Center just by sheer coincidence.
Yeah.
Well, I keep, trying to hold back from saying something like, well, it's also not entirely impossible that she was lured and murdered in the World Trade Center. I mean, the huge, huge buildings with lots and lots of offices. If somebody were, if she met somebody in that area and they worked there and they said, "All right, sweetie, let's go back to my place, let's go to my office and do the hanky-panky," and one thing led to another. I mean, it's not impossible. It's not probable, but it's not impossible.
No.
And that's the hard part.
Yeah.
It's not impossible.
Yeah.
Let's go to what I'm going to say is a completely self-made theory.
Yeah.
I have come up with this all on my own.
I think it's original content.
It's original content because nobody else is putting this out there.
Yeah.
And I don't see this anywhere else. But I'm going to say the last theory is that she was killed by her husband.
I think it's not a bad theory.
The NYPD did investigate Ron, and as I've already said several times, all we know about his wife is from him and her family. But the NYPD looked into him, and they ruled him out at some point in their investigation. I don't know how.
Sure.
I don't know what they had. But there's more red flags that are coming up. One red flag is that there was a call made from their home phone at 4 a.m. on the 11th to his cell phone. He has explained that away as saying, well, I don't remember doing it, but I must have got up in the middle of the night and checked my voicemail. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, why would you check your voicemail without your cell phone?
Well, it was the early 2000s.
Phone companies were charging you minutes for all usage. Call your voicemail, that counts against your minutes.
Yeah, sure does.
I worked for a cell phone company at that point. We used to tell people, check your voicemail from your home phone. Just save your minutes.
Yeah.
So that's kind of understandable. I can kind of get that. I can kind of get it.
Except the problem with that is that, I'm trying to put myself back into the year 2001. You would think he'd be able to just look at his cell phone without actually dialing anything and tell him he's got, tell him it would say if he's got voicemail or not.
I thought of that too. I'm not even. I can't even. I mean, that's suddenly we're going to branch out into 1,000 eventualities if we start saying, well, maybe he was out of battery, or maybe this was going on, or that was maybe they were in a dead spot. I mean, there's all kinds of things, and I've kind of held back from some of that.
I guess I will just say that I don't know about you guys, but if I wake up in the middle of the night worried about my significant other enough, at least to call my voicemail, to be cognizant enough to call my voicemail from my home phone to check my voicemail, I'm going to remember that the next morning.
You would think.
I'm not going to just be like, well, I guess I might have called my cell phone voicemail. You're going to remember.
Some people are different that way,
Keep in mind, though, he got in around midnight, and he had to get up and leave his house at like 6 or 6:30. So we're talking 4 hours of sleep.
Sure.
To then go back to sleep and sleep for a couple of hours.
I mean, I do that fairly regularly. But that's, and again, it's just me. But most people I know, I think, will say things like, "Oh, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was so worried about this person, and then I went back and went on the phone and called my voicemail and remembered to not use my cell phone and blah 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 blah."
Yeah.
So for me, it's a red flag.
A little bit, but the other thing is, does Sneha have a phone? Does she have a cell phone?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if she had a cell of her own. I haven't seen anything about that.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything about it either. I mean, and in 2001, I mean, cell phone usage was not nearly as ubiquitous as it is today.
No, it may have been that he had splurged and got one, or maybe he had one from work, but she didn't get one or didn't qualify for one through work. I mean, it wasn't nearly as prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go on though. Here's a fact I've been holding back.
Oh.
No.
Yeah, I'm a jerk like that.
Yeah.
I talked about a little bit that it wasn't all sunshine and roses between them.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember that charge that she filed that then backfired and ended up as a charge against her?
Yeah.
Okay. She had a court appointment on the morning of the 10th for that charge.
Okay.
So Ron had left the apartment to go to work at like noon or 1. But that morning they had gone to court.
Oh, he went with her.
He went with her. And, it didn't go well. And she pled not guilty, saying that she didn't do it. So, of course, now she's got to face the whole litany of the legal process. Mm-hmm. What I'm about to tell you, though, as with so many other things in this story, the family is denying, but the NYPD police report is saying, is that the couple had a big fight or a huge fight outside of the courtroom after the fact, and Ron was really mad at her because she was abusing drugs and alcohol, and she was having sex with other people, bisexual. So either she was having sex with women, or she was having sex with men, or both. I don't know. But in that accounting, according to the NYPD, she got angry, and she stormed out of the courthouse, and she left.
Which he denies, of course.
Oh, yeah, he says that's not what happened at all.
Then under his recounting of the whole thing, they had lunch before he left to go to work, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, they had lunch. And they went out for lunch, correct?
Yep.
Does anybody know what restaurant they went to? Is there any way to back that up?
He didn't say?
Yeah.
He didn't say.
He didn't remember?
Again, he didn't say.
Yeah.
My biggest gripe with his entire story is he didn't say. And that's what's going to lead us into the end of this theory, which may get us in trouble or may light some fires. I don't know. But what if Ron killed her?
Yeah.
He's the only person who has said most of the information we've given, and he's the only one who said that she wasn't home that night of the 10th, and that's entirely possible. But let's flip the tables. What if he wasn't home? What if he was out late and she called his cell phone at 4 a.m. and he came to a very angry wife saying, "Where the hell have you been?" I mean, it's completely possible. Or
she called him and said, "Where are you?" And he was still angry from the morning, came home drunk and angry.
Yeah.
Annoyed even more because she had the gall to call him to see where he was.
And then something happened, whether intentional or not.
Yep.
Something happened and she died from it. Or, I mean, there's also, because again, he censored everything, maybe she was having an affair with someone, male or female. And by the way, if you ever get on the forums are lit up with the fact that she was obviously having an affair because she was out, not with her husband. And I don't buy into that so much. But let's say she was having an affair. Let's say he knew she was having an affair and she got home late, or he got home late drunk. Same scenario plays out. They get into a fight because everything is brewing, and suddenly she dies for whatever happens, and then he's forced to try and hide a body. It just happens to be that this city goes crazy the next day, and as Joe pointed out, maybe that makes it easier to hide a body. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, really, my point is we only have one source of information, and we've railed against that on so many stories before.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, yeah.
I have to be honest, this one is such a heart-wrenching story that it took me about 5 reads through everything before suddenly the source stood out as possibly the suspect.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that most people have not pointed at Ron, because he is viewed as collateral damage.
Or a victim.
He's the victim, yeah. And whether I'm right or wrong, I really hope I'm wrong, but
I kind of doubt that he killed her. But I think it's more likely that somebody else killed her, some random type of person.
And I don't know if Ron's seeing anyone. I haven't seen anything. The last article about the story, I think it's 2 years old, and which would make that 12 years later. And they don't mention that, which you think they would if he had finally met somebody again, and they don't say that, which makes you think that maybe he really is the victim in this story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I think the thing about it is that when last heard of Ron, I don't know if they owned or rented that apartment in the Battery. I think they rented.
They rented it.
Yeah, he gave up the apartment.
Oh yeah.
And moved in with her parents.
Yes.
In upstate New York. And the thing about it is that if he went ballistic on her one night and wound up killing her accidentally or not, then there almost certainly would have been a prior history of domestic violence. And since she was so close to her family,
they would know.
They would have known about it. And
you would hope they would know.
He probably wouldn't be all that welcome in their home.
It's hard. It's always hard to tell with domestic abuse, but
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
maybe
and I don't even want to speculate on that.
Maybe she would have kept it quiet. I don't know. I mean, there's no reason to think that he was abusive.
I think honestly, the best scenario in this is that she was out late night, just crashed on someone's couch, left her stuff there, came home. The buildings were collapsing, and she thought, "Oh, I better go help," and then died trying to rescue people. And
that person didn't know who she was, so they couldn't say, "I found your wife's bags in my apartment when she crashed on my couch."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's the other thing. Though the bag is going to have a receipt in it. And
no, it isn't.
You don't
Could
think
be
so?
in her wallet.
Yeah, I mean,
I would.
How
keep
many
it
times
in
do
my
you
wallet.
get a receipt and you throw it in the trash can as you walk out of the store?
I never do that. I throw it in the trash can when I get home.
I do it all the time.
I just ask for no receipt. But in those days, you would.
You always got a receipt,
But most people, I worked in retail about that time, and 9 times out of 10, you would say, "Do you want the receipt with you or in the bag?" And they'd say, "With me, please. With me, please. With me, please."
And then they stuff it in their pocket.
Safe. Yeah, or they stuck it in their wallet and then came home and put it in their, little ledger or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what my parents did.
I usually just stuff it in the bag, and deal with it when I get home.
But yeah, but it may have been on her.
But
is
yeah,
the point.
It's possible. But,
yeah.
But I have to say, and I understand why the family wants to believe that she heroically died in the trade center, and she may very well have.
That's what makes you feel better to fall asleep at night.
Yeah, I guess, sorry not to belabor the point too much. In fairness, if it wasn't her that was in the surveillance tape on the 11th, she could have been walking home, saw the plane crash, had her bags, ran in with bags, dropped them on the street or whatever.
That's true too.
I'm sure that all of the stuff that was left on the streets by people trying to save people wasn't inventoried super well.
Yeah.
And may have been picked through
or whatever.
Or
or was just too trashed to really be worth saving. But But again, the problem, the big hitch that I have with that story is that no one knows who she spent the night with or where she spent the night at.
Yeah.
But again,
nobody has come forward.
I have got to admit that I have met somebody and had too much to drink and crashed on their couch and woke up in the morning and they were still crashed out, and I went, "Where am I? I gotta go." And it's not like I met them and I gave them all of my pertinent details the night before.
The other thing,
all they knew was my name was Steve and I was some silly looking dude with a goatee, and then I beat feet before they woke up.
Yeah,
in fairness,
it is possible, yeah.
There weren't posters of you posted around, right?
No.
That person would see that poster and think, "Oh, that's that girl." Also, in fairness, you don't necessarily go to the bar with bags full of like comforters and bedding and stuff.
That's the other thing. That's a little odd, don't you think?
I don't know. I think there's just so much odd with this story that there's not a good answer. But I think that for my own peace of mind, I want to believe that she died,
rushed to help.
She died helping people.
I want to believe that too.
Yeah,
I do. That's the way I want to believe.
I do too, but I don't quite believe it.
I have a hard time. There's so many other things. But before we belabor anything else and we go down any other rabbit holes, we're going to call this one done. So for anybody who wants to listen to any other episodes we have or read any of the links pertaining to this story, you can find all of that on our website, which is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. You can find us on iTunes and most people do, but if you find us on iTunes, do please take the time to subscribe, leave a comment and a rating, because that'll help other people find us. We are going to be on just about every streaming service known to man at this point. I don't even know how many there are out there, but
thousands.
I've stopped looking. We'll stop adding us. Find us on there. You can subscribe through whatever podcast app you use. We're on Facebook, so we've got the Facebook page and the Facebook group. Again, this story, I had a great conversation on the Facebook group a couple months back, which is why it's finally coming through, is because I was doing all the back research on it. But those are the kind of things that you'll get to read and participate in on the group. We are on Twitter. It's Thinkin' without the G sideways, because there's that character limit. Silly Twitter. You can always go ahead and send us an email. If you want to send us an email, our email address is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. Oh, and of course we have shirts and mugs and all of that kind of stuff.
Merch type stuff.
Yeah.
Merchandise.
Nightlights.
Yes, that is all available through Zazzle. If you go to our website on the right-hand side, you'll see a link to Zazzle. It's right above the donate button, and you can get anything off of there. And I think that's all of the good information that we need to give all of these good people. Right, guys?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Well,
so anyway, another mystery solved. We overlooked one possibility.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
The
Chupacabra!
Oh! Wow.
Yeah,
Oh.
hello. It's staring you right in the face, dudes.
Always.
Yeah.
Always staring us in the face. Well,
okay, anyway, that's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been great, and wait with bated breath. Next week, we have a big reveal.
Oh, good.
It's going to be great, but
I'm so excited.
we're not going to tell you about it now. We're going to make you wait another 7 days. So bye!
Bye, guys.
Ta-ta.
This episode of Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by Louis Mr. Teeny Toot. Instead, it's brought to you by all the other furry critters in the world that really, really, really want to give you some loving. So listen, you need some friendship. You really would love to have a friend there waiting for you when you get home. And guess what? There's somebody who would love to be that friend waiting for you when you get home. And that is a critter from your local animal shelter. So go visit your shelter and adopt a friend. And if, hey, you've already got enough friends that live in your house, aka your rulers, the little furry ones, well, you can still help out by volunteering, by donating. There's a bajillion ways to do it. So go out, give your time, give yourself. It's all for a great cause, and we know you're going to do a good job, and the little ones are going to be happy.
Thinking sideways.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I am Devin.